Right. So a very good morning to everyone, and welcome to this webinar workshop, which is a live session. So I believe we are doing it on Zoom, and the ones who could not join to the Zoom link, you all can be watching this through YouTube, and hopefully this workshop will give all of you as lecturers or students or the ones who are planning to become or who are aspiring to become teachers, and we have early childhood educators and all. I hope this particular workshop will be very beneficial for you. Right. So just to start out, so we'll be talking about the different innovative strategies for a very transformative teaching, right? So the reason why we selected this webinar is because I know in this particular program, I believe we have a lot of lecturers and teachers, as well as educators, also early childhood educators, special need education teachers, and also students as well who plan to aspire to become who plan to become inspiring teachers. Right. So special thanks to our collaborators and special thanks to Horizon Bridge Campus for providing me this opportunity for conducting this particular webinar, and also in collaboration with Harvard University, University of Cambridge, and UNSW Sydney. So just to start off about who I am, so my name is Dr. Hanif Barker, right? And I am currently a senior lecturer and a consultant. And my specialization revolves in the field of psychology and biotechnology as well. Along with that, I have conducted a lot of career guidance seminars for many students, as well as I have been a career coach for many teachers and different individuals. Okay, to start off with today's webinar, so I will just give you all an overview on what with today's webinar workshop would be. So I will be giving you an introduction to what is transformative teaching. Now, what do I mean by this term transformative teaching? Along with that, I will just touch into certain points about the evolution of teaching technologies. Along with that, what are the different techniques currently in active learning methods? And then we have another part where I will be explaining you on how you can integrate technology along with the modern education. With that, we have inclusive teaching practices. Then furthermore, we will be discussing about the assessments and feedback, and also on personalized learning parts. So this part will be quite important for people, those who or students, those who are special challenge, who are challenge students or special needs students, as well as early childhood educators, where you can devise a learning pattern or specialize and personalize a learning pattern for them to study whatever program or whatever module they are interested in, right? And also along with that, another very important factor which we plan on highlighting is on the professional development for you as an educator, right? So what are the professional development that you can gain in order to become a aspiring educator? Along with that, I'll be touching on certain case studies and real life examples which I have faced. Along with that, and also I'll just give you some tips and idea about how my particular type of teaching is, and why many people have come to me and they study with me, right? And also we'll be having a short workshop session. So in this workshop session will be more illustrated and more giving opinions to you all, for you all to come up with more innovative strategies after listening to this particular webinar. And we'll be concluding this particular webinar towards the end of this session, right? Okay, to start out on with the introduction, now what do I mean by transformative teaching, right? Transformative teaching is actually a pedagogical approach, or is a pedagogical approach. Now, what is a pedagogical approach? We call pedagogical approach has is a strategy or a method devised by an educator, right? Okay, so it's basically an approach which is devised by an educator to do what? basically you would go a step beyond, or you would aim to go beyond the normal traditional methods of education. So what the main idea or the main concept that you're supposed to focus here is on how are you going to foster deep learning? How are you going to foster critical thinking? Along with that, how would you develop a personal growth in your students, right? The reason why we look into transformative teaching is because currently we know this world after right after COVID and all, everyone got involved into technology. Any lectures you do, even this webinar that you do, everything is done through online methods, right? So, what I have personally observed in my years of experience is students, they actually require more than memorizing facts, or in other words, more than memorizing theories, right? Now, for example, let me give you. Now, me as a psychologist, yes, I do study about the theories of psychology or any theories related to biotechnology or biomedical science. But me as a student, I would like to see it happening rather than just understanding it. That's the reason why we have many animation videos and all these things. The reason why is because students get the knowledge more in detail when you move away from rather than memorizing facts on or rather than memorizing from facts. If you move away from that and you go to a more developed and sophisticated method. So along with this, what happens is the student would actually gain some skills. So what are the skills the student might gain? The student might gain problem solving, creativity, adaptability, and ethical reasoning. So in other words, the student does not need to mug up the entire thing, right? Instead of mugging up, they would actually put a bit thought into that and understand why is it like that, right? Or why is that particular theory like this, right? So the reason why we also try to promote transformative learning is because we try to encourage students, right, to make sure that these students start to question why. That's the number one. Like if anyone now, for example, if you provide a theory, let it be in any field. I'm not just talking about any science field. I'm talking about any field. The student should have the logic, or should have the capacity, or should have the courtesy to ask why that question, right? Also, the student should have the ability to analyze, right? And also to apply that particular knowledge that they gain in real life situations. I hope I'm clear on that, right? So what happens here is the student will actually, you're not only promoting the student, you're also promoting yourself in lifelong learning, and also you are preparing the students to be successful in the current rapid evolving society and the job market. As we know, our job market is actually evolving day by day, right? So we have to train them in such a way that they are ready to face the world. They are ready to face the world. Yeah. Okay. So the main intention or the entire goal of this session would be we will be trying to explore different innovative strategies where you can transform your learning experience. That currently you are using a learning experience, you can transform that experience to a more meaningful and a more interactive experience for both for yourself as well as the student. Along with that, another goal is to empower the current educators, those who have joined our seminar, is sorry, not the seminar, the webinar, by giving you all an idea to use different practical tools and insights. So the main agenda is to make sure that you do your teaching practice by enhancing the practice. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's go further through this webinar so you can understand it better, right? Okay. Right. So as I mentioned early on, so it's mostly what transformative teaching is, where you encourage a student to create questions, make them think critically, and also to apply the knowledge that they gain. Right. So the general idea is rather than them memorizing facts or different theories, they would develop a more deeper understanding regarding the concept and how they can apply it to real world. So, my dear teachers and my students or any and our aspiring lecturers, my basic generally ideas now, if I'm talking about based on my experience, any of my students that I have taught, I have made sure to create that particular concept has a story. Now, how do I do that? Is basically I take the concept, right? I take the particular concept and I create that into a story. So what happens is, if you observe, and also this is proven in psychology by different psychologists as well, and also in science, that students like to visualize rather than study. Now, for example, you show a student a video, the student would memorize that very quickly compared to compared to a student who is going to sit and memorize facts, right? So make sure whenever you teach, right, make sure to create that deep understanding of the concept. In other words, try to get the concept. Now, let's take, for example, any field. Now, let's take English, right? So we have the history. So try to create, if you're an English language teacher, or maybe you're an educator in early childhood education, if you're taking Montessori education, or maybe any other field, try to take that relevant example, right? Try to take the relevant concept related to that particular part which you're going to teach and create it in such a manner that the student goes back home and doesn't need to revise what the student has done, right? So try to create that concept, try to link it with real life applications. Eventually, I can guarantee 100% there will be a result that the student will score very good marks in their exam. This is based on my personal experience, which I have implemented as well, right? So, what happens is, now when you do this, when you actually facilitate a student to have a deep understanding in this, different concepts, what happens is the student won't stop in one place. The student will try to explore different topics out of their particular field of study and interest, right? And they will try to make different connections between different fields. In other words, now say for example, now I am a lecturer. Now I am teaching for biology A levels, right? So I have a subject called the nervous system, right? So in the nervous system, I talk about the brain, the nerve systems and all, but I created in such a story that, right, where they would try to link on, oh, okay, so our brain works like this, it works like that. Now, maybe there might be students, right? There might be students who are actually interested into business, right? But they will try to link the situation to see how they can do anger management control, how can they develop their thinking skills, how can they improve their thinking skills. All these things they will try to create a connection across different disciplines, right? And they will try to apply that particular concept to solve any complex problems. Let me just say, forget about studies. Let me just take a real life example. Now, for example, let's just say, all these students, right? When they come to the age of 16, 17, all become fanatics of cars, right? Some girls, they become into TikTok, right? Right. The current trend is into TikTok. Then many of them use this phone applications and all, internet, right? So what happens is, now when we train them from the child, or when we train them from as a child, or when we train them from the childhood of their education, right? What happens is, we are training them in such a method, right? It becomes a habit for them. Yeah. So what happens when it becomes a habit? Let it be any real life situation also. Forget. I'm just talking. I'm not talking about. I'm not talking based on academia or about research. I'm talking about just general life concept, right? They will be able to solve these complex problems by creating this type of characteristics as students, right? Also, along with that, now when you have something called deep learning, what happens is the student will be able to critically improve their critical thinking skills. The student will also be able to analyze certain information and also evaluate arguments and also to develop informed opinions or options, right? Now, what is the significance of this deep learning and critical thinking? Now, you all might be thinking, why is he talking about deep learning. Like what is like something about just deep learning, deep learning, he just like stuck onto that agenda, right? Yes or no, right? So the main significance here, or the more the importance of the deep learning and critical thinking would be is mostly to transmit certain information in order for them to develop a deeper understanding of a particular concept and to apply it into their real life applications. Just simple as that. Critical thinking is the same as well. So basically, now if you try to apply transformative teaching in your teaching techniques, right? I'm pretty sure you will have really good results. Especially, I'm talking about mathematics lecturers or math teachers, right? Yes or no? Because if you can create mathematics, right, in a such a profound way that the student just understands it out of nowhere, right? Your life is easy. You would actually have students getting excellent marks. Like I'm pretty sure 80% of your students would score marks more than 70, right? Why? Because you are eventually, you now we have something called the now when we talk about psychology, we have a concept called a halo effect, right? So what is halo effect? Let just me give you all a general idea, right? So a halo effect is a method where you actually create a rumor about someone. Now, just say for example, I am saying this person is this. Now that the person who I have conveyed the message goes and tells to the other person, right? And so on it goes. So what happens? That particular person's characteristics becomes, yes, this person is this. Why? Because it's the halo effect. So try to implement this particular halo effect into your teaching style and see there will be a big change, right? Right. Now, why did I mention that basically on transformative methods, we have to go beyond traditional methods, right? Now, as you know, right, traditional methods, I'm pretty sure most of you lecturers, myself, right, we were people who used to mug up, right? We were people who used to mug up completely. We used to like memorize, like we don't understand the concept. We used to memorize the whole thing, right? Right? Like we used to rot learn the entire thing, but we never understood the concept, right? So later on, what happened was now with the current teaching trends and all, people try to explain the concept, right? Because I know some places you have this type of teaching as well, right? The reason why is because now when you take traditional teaching methods, it actually focuses more onto memorization and rote learning. That means what is in the book, you study that, right? You only study that. But here what happens is the student does not get exposed into different skills. And what I mean is like they don't get into active participations, right? They don't get into discussions or they don't even get hands-on experience as well. So that's the reason where, or this is where transformative teaching comes into play. So what happens is transformative teaching, right? Sorry, it actually inspires changes and growth in a student by fostering curiosity, creativity, and a lifelong love for learning. Yes or no? Now, for example, if you really had good teachers, try to be that, right? Because let the students say, I had the best teacher, I had the best. This teacher was the one who taught me, like, I love learning because of that. Make the toughest subjects simple. Make the tougher subjects simple. Let it now. If you want from science, now because I'm more specialized in the field of science, right? STEM and all. Make sure you make chemistry, mathematics, physics, biology very easy. If you do that, what happens is the student wouldn't deviate from that particular life goal. Now, say for example, the student had an intention when the child was young, "La, I want to become a doctor. I want to become this. I want to become an engineer. I want to become a chemist," right? Now, what happens is currently we have teachers, right, which I have observed myself. Students are actually memorizing the entire thing. When you tell them in general facts or to apply it in real life application, they can't. So what happens is once they complete their advanced level or they complete their grade 12, what happens is they go to a field which is more simple. So what was their passion? They try to deviate from. That's the reason why we try to introduce transformative learning or transformative teaching beyond the traditional method is one of the reasons why we do that, right? Okay. Now you as an educator, what is your role as facilitators of transformation, right? So you as an educator, right? What you can do? You as an educator, you actually play a crucial role in facilitating of transformative teaching in the learning process, right? So what happens is, now you as an educator, what is your role? What would you do? You would create a supportive learning environment. You would encourage risk taking. You would do that, right? You would encourage risk taking along with that experimentation and collaboration among students, right? Along with that, so what I'm trying to say is, you as an educator, please keep in mind that you should act as a guide or a mentor or a role model to help the student in navigating different challenges, to help the student to discover their strengths, and to help the student to reach their full potential, right? So I hope you all would start to do that by the end of this webinar. Okay, right. So now let me touch into how our teaching methodologies had evolved, from how it had evolved. So the first area where I'll be touching is onto the traditional and the modern learning methods. And then I would give you all, I know some, most of the lecturers know, some of you all don't know. Don't know. I would like highlight onto the key milestones into evolution of teaching, and also explain you all the importance of adapting new methodologies. So this particular area, I'm pretty sure when we have the session for the workshop session, you all can come up with an innovative strategy, and you all can discuss it within the session, right? Okay. So now let's start with traditional and modern learning methods. So what is traditional methods? We all know in general. So just let me give a general idea for our aspiring teachers and all. So traditional teaching methods is basically where you have a teacher-centered instruction. So there's a teacher in the classroom, right? So the teacher is the person who knows everything. So what the student listens to the teacher is what they know, right? So the teacher will be your primary source of knowledge, and students can gain different source of knowledge by receiving information through lectures, textbooks, and memorization as well. That's the reason we usually provide different references for students to refer different textbooks and all in certain modules. This is the reason. So this is considered as a traditional method. But if you choose this method, what happens is, which we have observed as well, which I personally have observed as well, is students, they don't understand the concept. They just rote learn it, or they just memorize the entire thing, and they just follow a standardized assessment, like they have an exam or something. They just memorize the whole thing, they mock up and they write it in the exam, and they focus on what that particular content delivery is rather than a skill development. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, they would gain only the theoretical knowledge, and they wouldn't have an experienced knowledge at all. Why? Because in this particular type of teaching, they are not exposed to different risks. They are not exposed to experimentation, right? So what happens is that rather than understanding what the concept is, they would just memorize it, and once the exam is over, they would forget the entire thing. It happens, right? I'm pretty sure there will be many lecturers here who would agree on it, right? So make sure that we shouldn't do that to our students. That is my opinion, right? So that is where I use a modern learning method. Let's take our example is our transformative teaching method, is where what I do usually is, right, I actually emphasize on student-centered learning. Now, what is student-centered learning is where I gave you an example saying that I would create a story for the student to understand. Now, you need to understand, my dear lecturers, teachers, and all, is students do not have knowledge like us. For them, everything is new, right? Because I know some of you might spoon feed, some of you might not spoon feed, right? So you as a lecturer, what you can do is try to create your teaching method in such a way that it is more understandable for a student. I'm not saying you that not to use keywords and all. You are supposed to use the keywords, right? You are supposed to use the keyword, but try to make it student-centered learning. Like you need to break it down for the student, right? And make sure in this type of modern teaching learn method, you make sure the students are actively participated in different discussions and all. So like, like I'm just giving you an example. You all can talk about a certain topic, okay? And you all can divide into different group discussions and all. So what happens is they start to collaborate, they start to talk, right? And then they will be very confident to even answer if it is right or wrong also, because that is the issue that we have with many students. I'm pretty sure most of you might agree with me. Many students, right, they are scared to answer even if the answer is right. Why? Because we are following the traditional method. They are scared at that. Okay, now if I answer this, because I personally, because I am a career guidance counselor as well. I have seen students where they would be, no, is this correct or is this wrong, right? Is this wrong? Now they even know the answer, but they are scared to attempt to even answer it. Why? Because they are scared of the lecturer. In other words, what I'm trying to say you is be friends with the student or the lecturer. You have to keep a certain limitation. I'm not saying you to become their best friends where they start to disrespect you and all. No. Keep a limit. Keep a limit. Be friendly with them. And I'm pretty sure you can get very good results, because I myself am that kind of a lecturer, right? So make sure that you have a student-centered learning. Make sure the students have active participation into different discussions, anything, and make sure it's always an interactive engagement, right? So how can you do this? So what are like certain strategies which I have applied is, one is to problem-based learning. I would give them a problem. I'll tell them, okay, now this is the concept. You need to concept. Now applying the concept, try to solve this particular problem, right? Let them give funny answers. It doesn't matter. Let them give funny answers. Let the answers be weird. No problem. Let them try, because why we are building them? We are providing them a skill, right? Also, another method where you can use is flipped classroom. So, what is flipped classroom? I'll discuss it more in detail towards ongoing of the webinar. And also, we have project-based learning and cooperative learning, as well as experimental learning. So, these are some strategies that I personally use when I teach students. So, what happens is I basically encourage the student to collaborate, help them to think critically, help them to solve problems, and to apply that particular concept or knowledge with real life applications or context, right? All right. Now, let me give you a brief history on how the evolution of teaching has happened. So, teaching actually started during the Industrial Revolution. I know most of you know is in the 1800s, right? So that is where the shift in education towards mass schooling, standardized curriculum, and formalities of teaching roles took place, right? So before that, there was teaching; it wasn't there, but usually there were teachers who used to go to the house and used to keep individual classes and all, right? So eventually the development of different schools, universities, institutions all happened during the industrial revolution, right? So has time passed? Now when we come to the 20th century, that is the period where we saw the emergence of progressive education movement. What do I mean? This is where certain educators like John Dewey, Maria Montessori, Jean Piaget, all these people came in with different strategies of teaching, right? So what was this part? What was this particular concept was? They actually developed this type of a movement to help promote child-centered learning, hands-on activities, and holistic development. Right? Now, that is what I'm also trying to do. That's what I'm trying to explain you all, right? Create innovative strategies. So you have to make sure day by day year by year, century by century, you are supposed to evolve. You're not supposed to just take what people used to do in the 1800s. You are supposed to evolve based on the evolution of technology. Now, currently we have a technology, right? With the current curriculum, with the current advancement, with the current rapid growth of job market and all, we are supposed to evolve in teaching as well, right? Okay. So with the current, this is now a part which I'll explain you all. So with the current technology, so now mostly we use technology. Now we know that right after COVID, we started using different people started using doing lectures and all through online learning platforms, right? So the integration of technology, especially with computers and the internet, has actually revolutionized education. Why? Because, right now, me as a lecturer, what I do is if I explain certain concept, I what I'm trying to say is that me usually, rather than giving students the textbook, I try to find authentic videos where you can find it on YouTube, or you can find it in different learning platforms and all these things you can do, right? I try to introduce that to them rather than reading a book. What happens is the student will actually learn different methods. What happens is they will be introduced into digital resources, online learning platforms. Right now, online learning platforms, we have the Khan Academy, right? Sorry, we have the Khan Academy. Then we have different certain platforms and all. Because I personally I know Mr. Dr. Sal Khan. So with them and all, what happens is like he has revolutionized teaching. So basically, many students, they don't go for tuition classes, right? They learn through online learning platforms, right? And they will be profound on using multimedia tools, right? And also they will be having interactive stimulations, which will actually help them transform the way of their learning, and also help you as an educator to transform the way of your teaching, right? So when we bring with the 21st century skills, our skills are mostly into critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration, and adaptability. So what happens is make sure that you use these particular skills when you create a strategy for teaching your particular students, because I personally have used this, right? So what happens is like I have evolved it in such a method where I have bought different innovative approaches. Now, for example, I have also written a book recently. Now I'm trying to publish it soon, right? So it is on the evolution of human potential in the technological era, right? So if you all want, means I will tell the team to share the link of my book to you all, so you all can just sit and read through, because I have done certain interviews and all. So you all has an educators and all, how you all can improve your style of teaching as well, right? Okay. So now coming to what or why is it important to adapt new technologies, is because number one is relevance, right? So adapting to new teaching methodologies will make sure that education remain relevant and meaningful in a rapid changing world. Education would remain relevant and meaningful in this rapid changing world. So what happens is we are training students to face different challenges, opportunities of the future, where adaptability and critical thinking are very essential. So that is one. Okay, one of the importance of adapting new methodologies is relevance. Secondly, is engagement. So that's the reason why I told you, rather than following traditional methods, follow the modern teaching methods, is because it will actually help the student to, it will help the student in engagement and also in motivation by making learning interactive, personalized, and experimental as well. Experiential as well. So what happens is, so that's what I mentioned early on, where I stated saying that students actually they are scared to even answer, because if you try to follow this type of methodology, right? What happens is this particular student will start to develop better retention, Also, along with that, they would develop a deeper understanding in that particular concept and also lifelong learning habits as well. So, what we do, because you need to keep in mind, my dear lecturers, what we do will basically impact to that particular. You need to keep in mind what we do will basically impact to that particular student. Yeah. Okay. Then thirdly, I would say is skill development. Why is because basically now with the current trend is technology, right? So what happens is we need to make sure that we are also updated to the technology, right? The updated to the technology. So let me just give you an example. Now, most of you all use iPhone, right? I personally, I use an Android. Okay, so I'm using OnePlus, right? I use an Android. Many people use iPhone, right? Now, do you know every month? Okay, every month or every 2 weeks, you get an update that you need to update the application. Why is that? The reason is because if you update the application, it performs better. So apply the same concept in your teaching methodologies as well. So keep yourself updated day by day or semester by semester or term by term, whatever method you all go through, or year by year. So you need to be updated, right? Why? Because if you update, you would perform better. Yes or no? Right? Yeah. Okay. And then fourthly, we would go into another importance is on the equity and inclusivity. So you need to be very careful in this because many countries, and especially the place where I am teaching at and all, is usually we respect equity and inclusive, right? So make sure that uh, if you use an innovative teaching strategy, right, or you use an innovative teaching approach, okay, you can actually cater to diverse learning styles, abilities, and backgrounds. So it does because some people have autism, some people have ADHD, some people are special needs students. So you need to actually cater that, right? You need to cater to their learning styles, abilities, and backgrounds. Because we know every student is not a genius. Some students study slow, some students study fast, some are smart, some are dumb. But try to create your learning style in such a method, like try to simplify it, right? Like do not judge them because not everyone is not perfect, right? They might have a particular talent. So you as a lecturer, you are supposed to take that talent from them. So what do I mean by that? I don't literally mean taking that talent from them, right? I need to rephrase my words. Sorry about it. I mean help them to bloom that talent. I think that's the right term, right? Help them to bloom that talent. If you help them to bloom that talent, what happens is they can actually, you will also understand what is their plus points and what are their minus points, right? Because every student has the opportunity to succeed. Yeah. Okay. Right. And then towards my last point, I would say continuous improvement. That's why I said keep yourself updated day by day. Yeah. Okay. Now, coming to another concept that is on our active learning strategy. So, as I mentioned, I use certain strategies which I currently actively use it as well, right? So, that is why I mentioned you all about a flipped classroom, problem-based learning, and collaborative strategies. So, I will touch into each of these points, what they are, and how you can implement in your teaching methods as well, right? So, usually, what happens in a flipped classroom? So, what I usually do is, right? uh, I actually reverse the traditional teaching methods, right? So how do I reverse it rather than just telling the student this and that, right? I actually tell the student or I actually make the student engage with different course materials, right? With lectures, readings, and also outside of class, usually through videos or through online research. That's what I mentioned. I told I use YouTube videos and I use different videos and all. Because why? As we mentioned, right? That is what students nowadays they get into their head. Now, for me, as an example, I would even me personally, okay, I'm still a lecturer, right? I would feel rather than teaching, I would feel it would be better for them to watch the video to understand more better. It's not that I won't explain the concept. Yes, I will explain the concept. Let me make myself very clear. I will explain the concept, but for them to get a more deeper understanding, I would use videos and online resources. But whenever you use videos and online resources, make sure it is authentic. Make sure it is authentic, right? So what I do usually in my class time, usually in the classroom session, is mostly I explain the concept, and within after I explain the concept and all, so usually what I do is like this. Now, say if I'm teaching for a foundation student or for an first year or a second year student, what I usually do is I explain them the concept, because usually we have classes 2 weeks or twice a week or thrice a week. So what happens is, I usually what I do is I break down the timeline, right? So I explain them the concept when I go to class. I explain the concept and all. So just say, for example, your lecture is for 3 hours, right? 3 hours. The first 45 minutes, I will explain them the concept, right? And then the 15 minutes, I would create discussions, problem solving, and hands on project. Because me as a lecturer, I have noted that any student, the maximum knowledge they can take into their head is maximum 45 minutes, not more than that. They really need a break after, right? So what I do is, that is my general idea. So I explained in the concept. I basically put a discussion, or I put them in any problem solving method or hands-on project, right? For 15 minutes. So that covers up 1 hour, right? And then I would give them, then I would continue my second lecture. My second lecture means usually they keep 2 sessions. So 2 sessions would be 2 hours, 2 hours, right? So students need a break also, right? Even me as a lecturer, you need a break. You cannot directly go teaching for 2, 3 hours practically, right? So online you can do that, but not practically, right? So what happens here is, what I do is usually, as I mentioned, 45 minutes, 15 minutes, and again 30 minutes. Rather than going 45 minutes, I go 30 minutes, and then the remaining 30 minutes, I will explain the concept. So basically, what I do is I teach for almost 1 hour, 15 minutes, 1 hour, 20 minutes, and the other 40 minutes more into their activities. By God's grace and by I don't know, I would say it's like by my personal experience, I really found this method successful. Why? Because most of my students have achieved more than 80% in any of the modules I have taught. Why? Because they personally have come and said me, doctor or sir, or yeah, or sir, if you, when you have done methods like this, they have got a more better understanding onto the topic rather than just memorizing the concept, right? So basically what I have tried doing is I actually made sure that the students engagement will allow them to learn at their own pace and review materials as needed, right? So what happens is I also help them to have a deeper understanding and retention of different concepts as well. So actively they are learning. So that is one of my methods, which I call as a flipped classroom method, where I completely actually reverse the traditional teaching methods, right? Okay. Another type of method that I usually use, this is usually I use this for year 3 and year 4 students who are doing a degree, right? I use a problem-based learning method. I cannot use this method for everything. Only for subjects that have practicals or mostly have more concepts, I use this particular method. Why? Because this particular method is mostly involved, or it mostly revolves in student-centered approach, where actually student, they themselves study and they work on real-world problems or scenarios, usually often in group discussions, right? So me, rather than giving them lectures, what I do is, now there are certain subjects that I teach. Okay, so usually there are certain subjects that I teach. In these subjects, usually what happens is, uh, I I actually play a video on YouTube, and also there are certain parts which I know is more complicated. So I pause that particular part and I explain you. This is what it happens in general terms for them, because I cannot use high words or anything for them. So I break it down for very simple manner. So me, rather than giving them a traditional lecture, right, I would let the student actively explore. So student is actually self-learning. The student will actually explore and also be able to solve complex problems by applying the knowledge that they have gained. So along with that, not only that, now students should have something called common sense. No? That is where critical thinking comes in play. So they will be able to apply the knowledge that they have studied and also the common sense or the critical thinking skills they have, and they can eventually solve a problem, right? So in other words, right, this type of learning method will actually foster deep understanding by encouraging students by analyzing problems, collaborating with peers, and also develop solutions independently. Now, me as a researcher, I do this. Me as a researcher, I do that. Why? Because me as a researcher, I have to do it, right? Why? Because I cannot just stick to my agenda. No, if I'm working with a team, I need to listen to each and everyone's problems. I need to collaborate with them, right? That's why we say that teamwork is the best work rather than we say a person working individually and a person who works as a team, right? The person who works as a team will be more successful compared to a person who works individually, right? So that is where I bought the concept of problem-based learning, right? So I won't say, because I know you all as a lecturer, some of you might be new lecturers, some of you all might have experience, right? So me, this is actually I have fostered or I have developed these types of learning methods with years of experience, right? So I'm not saying you to follow my method. I'm not saying my method is perfect. No, you all come up with your own method. You all might be creative. Maybe there might be a time where I might be following your method, right? So that is where. So we all should be very open in learning. Yeah. Okay. All right. So usually what happens is, as I mentioned, so I'll conclude this particular slide is with this particular approach will actually promote active learning as students will take ownership of their learning journey and engage in meaningful and hands-on experience. Yeah. Okay. Now, coming to another type of strategy, which I call collaborative strategy, which usually used in research as well, right? So, collaborative learning strategies is usually involved where students they work together in groups or pair to achieve learning objectives. So yeah, so we use this particular learning objectives to do so, and active learning group. So we have different active learning group discussions, peer teaching, and project-based collaborations are mostly common in collaborative learning. So because when you can apply this, usually instead of giving them a final exam or something, you can tell them to do a group presentation or a group assessment. So this is where this particular development comes in. So what happens is, as a student, the student will actually engage by promoting teamwork, communication, and peer learning as well, right? Not only that, the student will also learn to respect each other's perspective as well, right? Also to share their ideas and develop interpersonal skills, leading to a more holistic understanding of the subject matter. Not only that, now if they develop this skill, what happens? Whenever they go to any new job or they go for any job market, they can work there properly. They know how to collaborate. Yeah. So this is another strategic learning, right? Okay. So now coming into how these techniques, right, will engage students, student engagement and understanding. So my general idea is now how, based on the three strategies that I mentioned, right? Based on those three strategies, how my techniques or how these techniques, right, will actually help the student engagement understanding to be much more better. So as I mentioned, so active learning techniques, right? So as we have a flipped classroom, problem-based learning, and collaborative strategies, they actually shift the focus from passive learning to active participation. That's why we call it as active learning techniques, right? So what happens is now, for based on student engagement and understanding, students will be more engaged, more motivated to learn, and they will have hands-on hands-on interactive learning experience. Along with that, it will help them to develop certain skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, deep understanding of different concepts, and also to apply this particular knowledge in their real life applications as well. So that is the main agenda. So that is my main agenda. What I want the student to achieve is, so basically you will observe that all my slides go based on this, saying that all my techniques will basically promote critical thinking, problem solving, deeper understanding of concepts, and students to apply the particular concept or knowledge that they have attained in any practical or real life concepts or contexts. Yeah, right. Okay. So basically, yeah, so what happens is, so usually by fostering different collaborations and all, they would eventually increase engagement, deep understanding, and enhance learning outcomes. So that is what the basic entire summary of this technique involves in student engagement and understanding. Okay. Now, coming to what is the role of technology in education, our current trend, right? So we know that technology has actually become an integral part of modern education, right? Because it actually has revolutionized the way of students learn and educators the way how we teach in many different concepts or in various aspects. So what are the different various aspects I personally think that technology has actually integrated in modern education is, one is enhanced learning experience, right? So use of digital resources such as multimedia presentation, educational videos, and interactive simulation. Basically, what happens will help capture the students' attention and enhance the understanding of complex concepts. So that is one. So secondly, the role of technology has also been a part of accessibility and flexibility as well. Now we know that most of the teaching methods and all are done through online. So we have online platforms. Now, example, now this is also done through Zoom, right? So that is also an online platform teaching. Digital tools, learning, they have become more accessible and flexible. So what happens is student can actually access educational material from anywhere at any time, promoting continuous learning and accommodating diverse learning styles and needs. Thirdly is global connectivity. So technology, it also has enabled global connectivity and collaboration where students can engage in virtual classrooms, connect with their peers from different parts of the world. It doesn't matter now. Me, for example, I'm currently in Australia, right? So I know we have people all around the world who we have collaborated and we are actually in a virtual classroom right now, right? So can you see like the role of technology, how it has been an integral part of our education, right? Okay. So what happens is not only that, now when that happens, this will actually develop educators and students to foster a sense of global citizenship and cultural awareness as well. Me, I will be learning your culture, you will be learning my culture, right? So it is what happens. You not only just study, you also learn other life lessons as well. Yeah. Okay. Then also we have data-driven insights where this is usually applicable for people those who are using LMS, and also we have learning management systems. Then we have Moodle, all these different online learning platforms. What happens is currently with the current trend where the integration of technology has happened in such a way where we as educators we can gather data and analytics of students progression and performance as well, right? So we can actually see or we can actually identify areas of improvement of us for a student. We can also tailor instruction to individual students as well. So now, as I mentioned, that I'm not saying you all students are perfect. Some students are weak, some students are smart. Now some students are bright, some students are weak, right? So technology has helped us in such a manner that we can actually analyze it and we can help the student to grow, right? and also provide timely feedbacks as well, which is another important factor. Now we know that we have technology in such a way that we don't need to sit and correct papers, right? We create a question paper, we eventually add the answers into the portal, or we add the answers into the Moodle, or let it be LMS, right? And eventually when the student answers the question, the student automatically gets the feedback, right? So what happens once the students automatically gets this type of feedback and all, what happens is it will help them to have a better learning outcome. Yeah. And along with that, another important of education technology is we are actually preparing for future skills for the students as well, or we help the students prepare for future skills. So what do I mean by future skills? We are preparing the students for a digital age and future workforce. So that's the general skills which I am talking about. So I'm talking about digital literacy. I'm talking about critical thinking, problem solving, and collaborations through interactive technology based activities. Why? Because these skills are actually essential for success for anyone in life, not only for a student, for an educator as well. Yeah. Okay. So now when I'm talking about showcasing of digital tools for engagement, which I said that I would highlight you all like how you all can improve your type of learning. One is through virtual reality, VR. Everyone uses this Google VR, that headset and all. Instead of them using for utter nonsense, right? You can create virtual stimulations, or you can create interactive simulations where students will actually immerse in virtual environments. Now, say for example, especially students, those who are doctors, okay, and all, right? Who are actually like you can now. I'm pretty sure you can't go and give them a real patient to do something, no, right? So what you can do is we can create virtual realities for them, where we create 100% secure background, and they can practice in their own time. They can practice in their own time. So, for example, now they know they have a practical session coming. Usually, for medical students, they have practical session, right? So, they go and they observe. They have their rounds and all. They go and they observe. They observe their. They have to undergo their rounds. They have to go observe. They have to work for the doctor. They have to be with the doctor whenever the surgery all happening. But they also should gain practical experience, right? So how can they do that? By using virtual reality. So they can practice like you can create a program, or you can create a software where they practice and they know which is right, which is wrong. Like for example, now when they are given a body, I'm just giving a general example. They are given a body, and in that body there will be like virtual reality where they can there will be like a line or something saying them to cut from here to cut like when how to cut the body, how to dissect the body and all these things will be done for them. So they will be trained, so they can practice, they can gain practical experience. Like that we can apply for different disciplines as well, right? So I believe it's a really good method, yes or no, right? Okay. So let me give another general example which I have mentioned here is virtual field trips, right? So instead of taking the student to particular areas, now especially I'm talking about archaeology and all these things, you can transport the student to virtual reality to historical sites, scientific simulations, right? Which can help demonstrate complex phenomena. For example, now you need to. I'm just giving an example. Now you are explaining about anatomy and physiology of the cardiovascular system. Cardiovascular system for other people, if I'm just saying, is about the heart, how the heart works in the body, right? So if you're going to explain that, right, you can actually create in such a way like an immersive storytelling method. That's why I told you, like when I do my teaching also, I do it as a storytelling method. Why? Because it will help the student to imagine. They will start to imagine. They will start to, like create a virtual reality in their mindset. So if we can make that practical, how great that would be, right? Okay, so one way is through virtual reality. So another way is through stimulation. So this is also, you can use educational stimulations because this will be more applicable for business side and all. I believe you have fine finance, because I'm not well we are onto the finance side, but when it comes to science, engineering, healthcare, I do know about it. Why? Because usually we can develop stimulations for students with real world scenarios, right? By providing them hands-on learning experience, right? So what happens is, if you apply this particular simulations in science, engineering, healthcare, and all these things, so students will be allowed to take experimentations without risk, will allow them to make decisions and also observe outcome, promoting experiential learning and problem solving skills as well. I believe that is the good method, right? Because my question is, if we have virtual now, if you go to this gaming, I don't know, in some countries have, not every countries, they have something called virtual gaming where they drive cars and all. They sit, they have this gearbox, the car, and all these things. And also, what you talk about is fighter jet pilots, like they have their own cabin, they fly stimulations and all, right? If you can apply this in teaching, what a big difference would it create? Just imagine. What a big difference would it create? Well, currently, we don't have. Certain countries have, not all the countries, right? Now in Australia, all yes, we do have, because I have also helped in design. I have not designed the program specifically, but I have been a mediator to help develop these real world scenarios, right? So what happens is we avoid risk, right? And also we will help the student to have a very good experience. So nowadays, any job you go, anyone asks, you have a degree, should have 2 years of experience, right? Yes or no? Everyone would be like that. So where would they gain this experience? They can gain this experience through these types of digital tools. Another type of digital tool is gamification. Me myself as a person, I am a game. I am a gamer. I know you all, some of you might feel it weird. Come on, he's a senior lecturer and he's a gamer. Yes, I'm a gamer. Why? Because actually, if you see in gaming, right, you can actually, in this type of a way, you can actually incorporate game elements into educational activities as well. How would I do that? By creating I would create game learning platforms like quizzes, interactive challenges, making learning fun and engage to make these challenges learning fun and engaging. So what happens is, now me as a student, or imagine if you are a student, right? It will actually motivate you, right? It will motivate you for what? It will motivate you to have a healthy competition and also reward progressions, leading to increased participation and learning retentions as well. Now we know most of them, everyone loves games. Now you say, I'm pretty sure everyone in your phone, you might have Candy Crush. You might have Candy Crush. You might have maybe what's that game called? That Farmville. And I know most of them are now in Asian countries. All they have something called Clash of Clans and all. These all are games. People actually invested into that. Now imagine if we can apply this with educational activities, how cool that would be. I'm not just saying you not only to develop a program, you can actually implement this in real life, because everywhere, all around the world, now if you are doing physical lectures and all, we have something called a smart team, right? Where you have the whole team. Okay, you can write in the board and all everything. You can develop game activities as well as, so you can develop game-based learning platforms as well. So what the student to get engaged. So what happens is the student basically studies much more better. Yes. Okay. Now, how does basically this technology that I spoke about, how does our entire technology supports transformative teaching practices, right? Number one is personalized learning, right? So as I mentioned, now I told you, now we know there are many students, those who have autism, some of them have are special need educators. So this is quite an interesting fact for many early childhood educators and all, right? So what you can do is you can create a personalized learning method. You can use technology by enabling personalized learning experience. You can actually create that technology in such a method that it will be tailored to individual students based on their need and their preference, right? So, what my best suggestion would be, like, I'm not an expert onto the field of because I'm not into the IT field, right? So, what happens is you can bring this concept to an IT engineer or a software development engineer, right? So, this person would create this kind of platforms for you and provide it to you as well, right? So, they would create different algorithms to adjust contents pace based on students' performance, ensuring each student receive target instructions and support. Yeah. So one way of learning is to personalize learning. Another way is to collaborative learning. So collaborative learning is we use online collaborative tools or platforms which will help them to have a collaborative learning experience, right? So what happens is the students, they sit in a group, they can collaborate the ideas onto the project, share the ideas, and also engage in discussion, fostering teamwork, communication skills, and peer learning. And also we have data driven instructions where we can use this particular type of technology which I even mentioned earlier on as well, where we as educators we can identify certain learning gaps of that student. We can track their progression, how they are doing, and also adjust teaching strategies to meet the students needs effectively, leading to improved learning outcomes as well, right? So this is how technology supports transformative teaching practices. Okay. Also, you can involve technology, how it supports is through engagement and motivation. So, as I mentioned earlier, you can use gamification methods, you can use virtual reality, you can use virtual simulation methods to actually create an interactive and immersive experience for students and help them to motivate to study more. Yeah. Okay. Now, coming to another concept which I'm going to talk about is on inclusive teaching practices, right? Right. So, inclusive teaching practices is usually involved in recognizing and accommodating the diverse learning style and needs of the student. So, this particular type of teaching is more into students, those who are handicapped, those who are actually weak in learning, those who have autism or maybe have different types of syndromes or anything, right? So, how would you improve for these students? How would you make their life easy, right? So, you need to understand that inclusive teaching practices, okay, basically includes the understanding of the student learn in different ways, not only based on their thinking ability. I'm talking about visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or combination of all these styles, right? So you as an educator, right, if you're into special needs teaching or if you have any weak students, what you can do is you can address this diverse learning styles by incorporating a variety of teaching methods and materials, right? So I'm not only just telling for only weak students. This can also be for the smart students. So where you can include visual aids, interactive activities, group discussion, hands-on experience, experiments, and multimedia resources as well. So what happens is this particular student will engage and cater to the individual's preferences and strength, leading to an improved learning outcome, right? So this is what we call inclusive teaching practice. So that is one of the methods, one of the diverse learning styles, which I personally use as well, right? So keep in mind that creating accessible content is very crucial in teaching, right? Because you as an educator, you need to create accessible content by using clear, concise language, providing alternative formats. Now, for example, I'm saying what if a student study in a theory, right? I'm just giving an example. If you're going to make the student study in a particular theory, right? Some of them might understand, some of them might not, right? Especially I'm highlighting more into people, those who have disabilities or diverse learning needs. That means I'm talking about special need children and disability students. So you can develop or you can create materials and resources that are accessible to all students. It shouldn't be only these type of students have to create this type of content, this type of student have to create this type of content. No, create content where anyone can watches it can understand. Anyone watches it can understand, right? So make sure that you create any contents using clear and concise language, providing alternative formats like audio, description, transcription, captions. Like when someone's talking about audio, some people can't hear, so you can use a caption, right? For some people, they are not visible, but make sure that if that audio is there, it doesn't go in a very fast track method. It goes like the student can understand word by word, right? And also description of certain things in a very simpler form, right? And also make sure that if you use these contents and all, you make sure that you use readable fonts and colors and ensure compatibility with assistive technologies. What do I mean by assistive technologies? I'm talking about AI, right? So make sure that you use AI technology. It's not a crime that you use AI technology. No, you can use those, right? So what happens is by making these types of contents, right, you as an educator, you will promote equal access to learning opportunities for all students regarding of their abilities or of their background. Yeah. Okay. Now, talking about cultural responsive teaching. So this is another important fact. In certain countries, actually, a rule that we have to respect different cultures, right? Doesn't matter which culture, where it comes, you are supposed to respect those particular culture when it comes to development of their diverse content and perspective into curriculum, either it be supportive and inclusive classroom environment. So what do I mean is make sure that you have a positive relationship with the students, right? Let it be any cultural background. Because I know there are some teachers who would be like, this person, like, because this culture is there, because I wouldn't highlight everyone is bad. No, but I personally know some lecturers who would be like, this student, not to be racist or anything, this student is black. I won't teach this student. This student, it comes from a pure caste family. Like, I have to keep my respect. Come on, you are an educator. It is a shame for you to call yourself as an educator if you have these type of secondaries, right? So make sure you foster a positive relationship with any student coming from any background, right? Not only that, if that student has special needs, make sure that that student also has that mutual respect and also have mutual respect and understanding among students, right? Because if you do so, right, these students will feel valued, respected, and they will also feel empowered to be successful in academic and in academia as well as in society as well. Not only that, you as an educator, you will receive a lot of respect based on if you follow this type of cultural responsive teaching, right? So I know it's a very sensitive topic, but I had to put it there, right? So that we can change the landscape of different educators and the different theories that different students and parents have upon us, right? Okay. Now coming to another part called inclusivity, right? So what is inclusivity? Inclusivity is basically your transformative teaching, which will help the student to change, grow, and deeper understand about several about any topics of concern. So what happens is you as an educator, you will create a learning environment that will celebrate diversity, promote equality and fairness, and engage collaboration and empathy as well, right? So make sure that you do that, my dear lecturers, right? So you as an educator, it is fundamental for transformative teaching. You need to add inclusive teaching as well, right? Right. And also, along, not only that, now you as an educator, you will also unlock the full potential of every student and empower them to reach their goals and aspiration as well. So, my dear lecturers, please make sure that you do that. So, try to keep these points in your mind now in this workshop session when you all have. Try to keep all these things in your mind, right? Try to keep all these things in your mind and try to apply this particular concept when you create a innovative strategy for teaching during the workshop session, right? Right. Now coming to assessment and feedback. So I know most of the lecturers, you all know what is assessment and feedback, what are the types we have, right? So let me just touch into that particular area. I won't go much into detail. So I know we have some of our aspiring teachers and all who wants to become teachers. You all can understand this concept a bit, right? Okay. So we have formative assessments, we have summative assessments, we have effective feedback mechanism, we have using data for improvement, which I even highlighted before, and role of assessment in supporting transformative learning outcomes, right? Okay. So what is formative assessment? So formative assessment is basically an ongoing interactive process used to monitor students learning and provide feedback during learning process. So what happens here is usually what we as educators we do is we identify the student's strength and the areas of improvement. We guide instructional decisions and promote continuous improvement. So examples of formative assessment include quizzes, class discussions, peer assessment, and self-assessments are the most common tools that we use. And why we use this particular assessment is to help students engagement, support personalized learning, and foster a growth mindset by focusing on learning progress rather than just final outcome. Right. Then coming to your summative assessment is usually this occurs towards the end of any learning module or towards the end of any learning period where the students' learning outcomes and the achievement level against predefined standards or criteria. So in other words, it's like more like a snapshot, right? So you won't understand towards the continuous assessment of the student. This is more into like you study everything, okay, and you answer the final exam. That is what basically summative assessment is, right? So you what happens is the students you cannot find out how has the student improved, how what is the student's performance, what the student is weak at, what the student is good at, and also you only just inform grade and certificate decisions, right? And it what happens here is you would develop a comprehensive view of student achievements, allowing comparison across students or groups and inform accountability measures as well. In other words, if the student fail means fails, or the student passes means pass. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now coming to what is effective feedback mechanism, right? Why is feedback mechanism why does feedback mechanism have to be effective? Number one, it has to be timely and specific, right? So your feedback should be provided promptly, focus on your specific learning objective or skill. Secondly is constructive and encouraging. So constructive and encouraging is where your feedback should be constructive, highlighting areas of improvement while also recognizing strength. Okay. Then we have actionable, where your feedback should include actionable suggestions or strategies for improvement, promoting students' reflection and self correction, and varied format where Feedback can be verbal, written, or peer-to-peer, or through digital platform tailored to suit diverse learning preferences, right? So usually these are some feedback methods where we usually use. I'm pretty sure any lecturer will use these methods eventually, right? Okay. And when it comes to our online method, we have using data for improvement. So as I mentioned early on, that we collect the data from to see how the students' performance and all happens, and we also analyze to see which part or which trend the student is weak, which part does the student require attention in, and all. And also we have data informed decision using data insights to make informed instructional decision, and also continuous monitoring as well. Okay, right. And yes, what is the role of our assessment in supporting transformative learning outcome is, excuse me, would be informing instructional designs, along with that promoting reflection and growth. Then we have personalized learning, measuring impact. So all those 4 points includes usually the role of assessment in transformative learning outcomes. Right, I believe we do have some questions, right? And yes, we do have some questions, but what I will do is I will answer these questions in the Q&A session, right? So I believe we won't be able to take all the questions. We'll be able to take some of the questions, right? Okay. So what I would suggest is, I think, Andrea, I hope you are there on the meeting, right? So, Andrea, what I want you to do is just filter some questions, try to relate and see what are the common questions. So, because we'll have a lot of common questions, and send the questions to me, and I will be more than happy to answer. Right? Okay. Now, coming to another important fact which I spoke about is personalized learning pathways, okay, where you can create personalized learning paths. So you can create personalized learning paths through adaptive learning platforms. You can use individualized learning plans, student-centered instructional design, personalized learning approaches, and I'll just give you an idea how personalized learning supports transformative education as well. So me as a lecturer, I do use personal learning pathways for students those who are quite weak, right? Okay. So adaptive learning platforms, right? So it's basically adaptive learning methods where you use digital tools to customize the learning experience for each student based on their abilities, interests, and learning styles, right? So these type of platforms, as I mentioned, since we use digital tools, you can use data analysis and algorithms to assess students' performance, identify areas of strengths and weakness, and deliver tailor content and activities as well, right? So when it comes to active learning platforms, right, you can actually adjust the pace of difficulty learning and contents of lessons to match each student's need, ensuring that they receive personalized supports and challenges as well. So if you use this type of technology in this way, if you use this technology, what happens is you as an educator, you can individualize learning experience that optimize students' engagement, motivation, and success eventually, right? Okay. Coming to the second type is your individualized learning plans, where this type of plan actually is designed to meet specific learning goals and needs of each student, right? So now when you create this particular plan, you have to take in account certain factors such as the prior knowledge, learning preferences, academic abilities to create a target learning experience, right? So you as educators, what you can do is you can customize instructional materials, assessments, assignments to align with each student's learning pathways and provide appropriate challenges and support, right? So what happens here is if you create for a student an individualized lesson plan, you actually foster a sense of ownership and autonomy in students, empowering them to take control for their learning journey and achieve meaningful growth and development. Right? Now coming to the third type of personalized learning pathway would be student-centered instructional design. So what happens here is mostly this is an interaction, or this type of learning is between is with the focus of the teaching from the teacher to the student. So I usually take one particular student and I teach the student individually, right? So that is called a student-centered instructional design. So I would play by placing. So what I would do is I would accommodate all these students together by placing learners at the center of the educational process. And in student-centered classrooms, educators can actually act as facilitators and guide. Right. So you as an educator, right? You can create learning environments, you can promote active participation, you can collaborate, and also you can be a part of their critical thinking as well. So you can develop instructional activities designed to be interactive, relevant, engaging, and also allow students to explore concepts, solve problems, and construct knowledge collaboratively. And usually the whole entire general idea of this student-centered instructional design is to help encourage autonomy, self-direct learning, and a sense of ownership in students, fostering deeper understanding and long-term retention of information as well. Yeah. Okay. And yes, personalized teaching approaches. So those are some approaches which I have mentioned. So what happens is, based on what approach you choose, right? You can create a flexible pacing, choice of learning activities, and ongoing assignments and feedbacks as well. So what happens is, when you do that, you improve the students' learning experience, right? And also you can create more inclusive, engaging, and effective learning environments that supports the diverse needs and ability of all students, right? And how personalized learning supports transformative education. So as I mentioned, it will empower students, it will cater the students to their diverse needs. So those are the two main concepts which we usually tell. Right now, coming to a very important part is your professional development for educators. Right. So what I mean your professional development of educators. So one, I'll be focusing on the continuous learning and growth as an educator, networking and collaboration, you as an educator, reflective teaching practices, and resources and strategies for ongoing professional development, right? So you as an educator doesn't mean that you know everything new, right? That's the reason why you all attended this workshop, right? Because you all would like to upgrade your life, or you like to upgrade your skills in life, right? So let's go through this particular part, right? So continuous learning and growth for educators is actually vital. Because why continuous learning is vital? Because as our industries are evolving, we also need to evolve, right? So number one is, we have to be we should be adaptable to change. So as education is evolving with new technologies, new teaching methodologies, and student demographics, we have to make sure that we are updated, up to date, right? Then we also should make sure that we have improved teaching effectiveness, right? So when it comes to learning new strategies, teaching strategies, assessment techniques, classroom management skills, all these things has to be enhanced as an educator. So you as an educator, all these skills has to be enhanced as you progress in your career. Then coming to our next part is student engagement. We have to make sure that we are actually updated with latest trends and incorporated with innovative approaches to foster a very good student engagement and enthusiasm for learning. And also, as I mentioned, continuous learning will help you in your career advancement, such as different leadership skills or leadership roles, specialized teaching position, and also education consultancy as well. Right. So when it comes to networking and collaboration, make sure you all network, you all get connected. So make sure you share your ideas and experience with your field of people from your relevant industries. Then also make sure you are open for innovation and growth. Also make sure you always build professional relationships. Why? Because if you do so, you can expand your network and you can create a name for yourself around the around the globe, and also make sure that you expand to the horizon. So that is what I mentioned basically when I said that make sure that you expand throughout the globe. Okay. So, and make sure that whenever you do any teaching practices, you need to reflect, right? So make sure that if you want to be a very good educator, you should always do a self-assessment on yourself, right? You need to evaluate your teaching practices, right? You have to see whether your interaction with your students is good or bad. So try to do a self-assessment and try to improve on it, right? Always try to get feedback analysis, because usually what I usually do is whenever I finish particular usually we have two types of feedback analysis. So one of the feedback analysis is during the midterm and then towards the end of their term. So during the midterm, what happens is we get a feedback saying that okay, this lecture is this lecture is that, this lecture can improve in this and all. We can do that, right? And towards the end of the term also we do that. The reason why we do that, we get a feedback analysis, is because so that when we go to the next term or when we get a new set of students, we can improve. That is the reason, right? So because we can improve our strengths, we can improve the area of improvements that we need, and also we can improve our teaching strategies as well. And also make sure you as an educator, you should have a goal setting. What do I mean by goal setting is, you as an educator, whenever you go for any class, okay, whenever you should be well prepared, you should be part, okay, I'm going to teach this particular concept today in the class, I'm going to develop these activities, and I'm going to finish that particular session. That is what makes you a very good educator, right? Okay. Now, let's take some examples of reflective practices. So, let's take one of the examples on journaling about teaching experiences, right? So, attending these kinds of workshops and all are one of the example, and engaging in your peer observations, right? So, you have your staff members, you might have your university lecturer panel, you might have students, and also make sure that you get feedbacks from them as well. So these are some of the examples what you can do in order to improve or to reflect based on your teaching practices. Okay. Now, resources and strategies on ongoing professional development, right? So, as I mentioned, so one way is your professional, you have how you can improve your professional development. One is to attending workshops, conferences, webinar, and online courses, right? That will help you to acquire new skills, knowledge, and certification, and also professional organizations where like you have Toastmasters, one of the most common organizations around the world, where you can join where you can join different professionals, and you can access to different research, learn about best practices and networking events and collaborative projects, and also you can yeah, and also you can create a professional development plan, right? So you as an educator, you can create a plan on based on your interest, your career goals, areas of improvement, and a feedback from your evaluators as well, and mentorship and coaching as well. So eventually if you need training, so me, I myself, I am a career coach. So if you all need training, you all can contact me. So I am available on LinkedIn. So you all can contact me on LinkedIn. And if you all require mentorship, seeking coaching, you can contact through me, or you can contact through different coaches and all. and you can gain their experience, you can gain their guidance, their feedback, and improve your ongoing professional growth as well, right? Okay. Now, coming to certain case studies and real life examples. So, as I mentioned, how has our how has our technology improved, right? So, sorry, not the technology. How has our technology, our teaching methods have improved? So, certain examples are. So, I have taken four main examples, which are the most common, most of us know. Is high tech, high California. Then we have Ronberg. We have international baccalaureate and Montessori education. So I'll just go through that, and I will go through that, and I will say that how I have personally applied all these skills, and how I have created that particular agenda, that particular types of teaching methods which I explained previously in this webinar. Okay, so when we take high tech high, right, is actually high tech high is actually a network of charter schools in California, right? They are actually well known for their innovative approach to education. Why? Because they emphasize something called the project based learning, where students they engage in hand-on projects than integrating multiple subjects and real that integrate multiple subjects and real world applications. That is how their curriculum is developed, because their curriculum is developed in such a manner where it fosters critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and problem solving skills among students, right? And also we have created their their learning environment in such a way where they have used collaborative spaces, use of technology for research and presentations, and also focuses on personalized learning pathways for students, right? They're really respectful. Like you have to see, like you go, you see their type of learning method is like another level, right? So I have taken my idea, I have taken from them as well, right? Okay. So educators, those who are in high tech high, they play a facilitative role. Their role is facilitative. When they teach, it's not like they teach in a such a manner like now, say for example, when you go for business, we have business, finance, accounting, so on and so on. What they do is they take all these subjects, right? They take all these subjects and they apply it in a hands-on project with real-world application. They study it like that. It's really fantastic, right? So what happens is they play these educators they play a facilitative role by guiding the students to project, providing feedback and encouraging exploration and inquiry as well, right? Another case study is on Ron Berg, who was involved in project-based learning as well as portfolio assessment as well. So his idea was more into hands-on, authentic learning experience where he would put the students in real-world problems and showcase their learning through portfolios of their work. That means, in other words, what he did was his idea basically was the importance of student engagement, ownership of learning, and development of essential skills such as communication, collaboration, and self reflection, right? And his particular portfolio is currently actually his particular portfolio assessment and assessment actually currently used in many schools around the world, which actually has helped some of us, including me, in our transformative teaching practices, right? So the reason why I'm giving these examples because you all need to know like how we come up with these methods. So now when you read through these case studies, you all also can come with some fantastic innovative ideas as well, right? Right. Thirdly is international baccalaureate. So international baccalaureate is actually recognized for its rigorous and holistic approach for education, right? Because their concept is like another level where actually students, right, they explore concept, they even ask question and they conduct investigation. They actually ask question from the lecturer, right? The reason why they do that is because they want students to develop academic, personal, and social skills to help them prepare for higher education, active citizenship. Right? Imagine. Right. And fourthly is Montessori education developed by Dr. Maria Montessori. Right. What she did was she emphasized on child-centered hands-on learning approach, which is actually used for all your primary school teachers and early childhood educators, and also AMI Montessori lecturers as well. Right. So what does it mostly focus on? Right? It mostly focuses on multi-age classrooms, personalized learning activities, and focus on practical life skills, sensorial experiences, and academic concepts. So the main aim of Montessori education is to nurture the whole child, fostering creativity, curiosity, and love for learning. So those who are maybe early childhood educators, primary educators, you all can apply this particular strategy in your teaching methods, right? Okay. So when it comes to innovative practice, right? So as I mentioned, with the current trend, one is we have to make sure that we integrate technology, right? So now when you are now in our workshop session, what you can do is you all can come up with the idea by integrating technology, how you can enhance or how can you innovate strategy for transformative teaching. Along with that, make sure that when you're creating an innovative practice, make sure that it should be a student-centered design. Okay. And thirdly, authentic assessment. Right? So these three are the main criteria that you need to focus when it comes to developing your own teaching methodology, right? Okay. Then what happens if you use those three innovative practices? Would increase interaction of the student and relevance and enjoyment, which I have already explained. Right. So I believe these parts I have covered up, right? And yes. So now let's come into our workshop session, where workshop session. So my idea here is we are planning to actually engage you all into a hands-on activities, facilitate a group discussion on challenges, solution, and which is the best practice, and provide opportunities for your networking and collaboration as well. So I know everyone is not able to do this workshop because someone's also on Zoom, because unfortunately our Zoom platform is full. So don't worry, the ones those who are on YouTube and all, what you all can do is you all can contact me, and I can also share with you all how this workshop session goes through, right? So keep these 3 points in mind, the 3 points of agenda that I mentioned earlier, right? So I want you all to develop a strategy, okay? So I want you all to develop a strategy where you all focus mostly on, just give me a minute, I'm really sorry. The slide, I want you all to mostly focus on technology, how you can integrate technology when it comes to your own strategy, how you can make it a student-centered design, and how you can make it an authentic assessment as well. Right? Right. So don't worry, I'll be in this workshop, so you all can ask me questions if you all have any doubt, right? But have any doubt, and yes. So I believe I can give you all 15 minutes to come up with a strategy. So it's up to you all. Maybe some of you might know each other, some of you might not. You all can develop some idea eventually, right? Okay. Okay, so your time starts now. So let's take 15 to 30 minutes so you all can come up with the idea, and you all can do it. Yeah, that is actually fantastic. Very good. Right. So actually, I believe we have exceeded more than 30 minutes. Right. So actually, all of you have come up with a very interesting strategies, right? So if it's maybe applicable to the place where you work, why not? Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. So basically, so I believe we have come to the conclusion of our webinar. So I would like to thank everyone for attending our webinar who all has attended and also for the workshop. And also special thanks to our collaborators and a special thanks to Horizon Bridge Campus for providing me this opportunity. Right. So I believe we have a set of questions, right? And I have been forwarded these questions to me. Right. So one of you all have asked me that what is transformative teaching and why is it important in modern education? Right, that's a very good question. I believe maybe you weren't there in the beginning of the webinar. So, transformative teaching is actually transformative teaching. It goes beyond traditional methods. So there is a type called traditional teaching methods and non-traditional meeting methods or the modern teaching methods, right? So transformative teaching it actually focuses more to foster deep learning, critical thinking, and personal growth in students. Now, why is it important? Is because this particular teaching method, right, will actually help students to equip with certain skills needed for success in a rapid changing world, right? So that's the main agenda on your question. So I hope I have answered your question. Right. So we have another question. How can active learning techniques engage student engagement and understanding? Okay. Right. So as I mentioned in this webinar, right? So I mentioned some of the active learning techniques which I personally use, like flipped classroom, problem-based learning, and collaborative strategies. Usually, all these learning strategies, okay, it involves in students in learning process, promoting engagement, critical thinking, and knowledge retention as well. So, if you are asking me like which active learning method is best, I would, like me as a person, I collaborate, I actually have made all these training learning methods into one. I have made all these learning methods into one, right? So I feel all three are better, but depending on your situation, what type of students you teach or what type of level of students you teach, it is up to you to decide what technique would be better, right? Right. So we have another question that is, yeah, what role does technology play in the transformation of teaching? Okay. And how can educators effectively integrate into their classroom? Right. That's a very good question. So as I mentioned, with the current trend, technology supports transformative teaching by providing digital tools, right? We're providing digital tools for interactive learning, right? So, what do I mean by interactive learning? I'm talking about virtual simulations. I'm talking about personalized instruction. So, what you as an educator you can do is you can integrate this technology effectively by selecting the relevant tools you need in providing training and aligning technology using the learning objectives mentioned in your particular curriculum, right? Okay. So we have another question that is, what are inclusive teaching practices and why are they important for transformative teaching? So I mentioned already before as well, inclusive teaching practices, it actually caters to diverse learning style. That means it depends, diverse learning style means for different people, a different learning style. This is more into people with special needs. So depending on their background, their abilities, right? So what happens here is the reason why we try to promote inclusive teaching practices is because we make sure that all students are valued and are successful in life, right? So they are all valued and successful in life, And also, why it is important is because when it comes to transformative teaching, right? It helps to promote equality, access, and engagement as well, right? Okay, okay, so right. Okay, so we have a really good question here. How can educators access student progress effectively and provide meaningful feedback to support transformative learning outcomes? Yeah, so here, this is a very good question. So here is actually, when it comes to assessment and feedback, you can actually have a combination of both. What I mean by both, I'm talking about formative and summative assessment in order to understand the student's progression, right? So what happens is, if you want to see the student progress, it is up to your hand to provide timely and constructive feedback to help the student to understand the student's strength, the area of improvement, as well as in supporting their transformative learning as well, right? Okay, okay, I think so. Is this the last question? And there, last question, right? Okay. How can educators stay updated with best practices and continue their professional development in transformative teaching? That's excellent. So that's what I mentioned. So most of you have attended to this workshop. So that is one way how you can develop your professional development, right? So you can attend workshops, you can attend conferences, you can attend webinars, right? And also participate in different online communities such as Toastmasters and all, right? And what happens is, you can collaborate with your peers, let it be your staff, let it be people coming from your particular field, and also engage in reflective practices as well, right? So as I mentioned, so if you all are interested to have maybe improve your skills through mentorship finding, I'm more than happy to be a part of it, as I myself is a career coach, and I have experience in this particular field. So yes, we can help you also. Not only we, there are many people, and I'm pretty sure many universities and all, they conduct these types of workshops. They have people for these to do, right? So yes, so I believe I have answered the questions. And if there are any more questions, what you all can do is, I believe this will be uploaded to YouTube, right? And I believe this is going live on YouTube as well, if I'm not mistaken, right? So you all can post a question through your comment box, and we'll be more than happy to answer anything, any questions that I have not answered, right? So I would like to thank everyone. Thank you very much for attending, and I hope you all have a really great day. Right. Okay. And thank you for joining this session. And I hope this session has been a very interesting session for you all. And I hope this session will bring some innovative strategies in your transformative teaching. Right. So thank you very much.